bit late. I know we said 8 o'clock. We had a couple of technical difficulties. I was coming back off the meeting earlier, so I'm glad that you made it. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome to the Bliss Lounge. All right. I'm so happy you guys are here. We are making it happen every Thursday night. I'm Dr. Nicole, your host for the Boundaries to Bliss Lounge. This is your place for empowered living, blissful living, living that has you in the driver's seat, not letting life just happen to you. And so this is what our fourth week. Last week, if you tuned in, you'll remember that I was on the cruise and I was like, I'm still going to do the live show. So happy to see you all, and I hope you're doing well. Ramadan Mubarak for everybody who observes Ramadan and is fasting. And I just hope you're having an all around amazing week. It's so good to have you here. As everybody knows, I am Dr. Nicole Montero, licensed psychologist, certified life coach, and I am your guide on your journey to feminine energy, blissful living, empowered, authentic living and relationships, all the things that you want to experience as a woman. All right, so let's talk about today's topic. We are going to talk about burnout. Are you dealing with burnout? So many people are right now. They have been, right? I've been teaching on burnout for about 4 years now. So this isn't new. But right now, we're in a level of burnout that is unprecedented. I'm hearing it all the time from people. So, are you dealing with burnout? If so, we're going to talk about it. And I want to help you come up with a bliss plan, your own personal bliss plan. Because let me tell you, you do not deserve to live in burnout and you don't have to live in burnout. There is a way to tap into your inner peace, your inner joy, your inner bliss, despite all of the craziness that's going on around you. Okay? So, what is burnout? And if you have a question, you can go ahead and put it in the chat. What is burnout? If you've been following me for a while, you know that I do a regular masterclass called Banish Burnout and Build Bliss. You see a theme here, right? Like, I want you as a woman to be able to get to a place of bliss. And I use bliss because it is not just happiness, right? It's the overall feeling of well-being and joy and next level positive energy that you're feeling. And I think a lot of us have been burnt out for so long that we don't even know what that looks like, what it feels like. We can't even imagine it. So I want you to, first of all, just ask yourself if you even think it's possible to get off of the hamster wheel, the day to day stress, the worry, the anxiety, the lack of sleep, the constant thoughts running in your head, the self doubt, the feeling like you're always in scarcity. Am I saying things that resonate? Do any of these things resonate for you? Are these things that you experience? Well, if they are, first of all, I want to tell you, you're not alone. Why do you think I was able to list so many things? It's a couple of reasons. One, I work with women all the time who are in this space. Women who did the right things. They went to school. They followed through, they were the good girls, as we say. They followed the rules, and it feels like some are saying, like, what was it all for? Right? For me to do all of that, put all of that work in, all of that time, all of that dedication, and to then feel like life is empty or I'm on a hamster wheel, I'm feeling completely depleted and exhausted, right? So that's one way I know. I work with women all the time who are going through it. But I was in a state of burnout myself. And I talk about it when I teach my class, the Banish Burnout and Build Bliss class. um, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to feel a level of disconnection. And I always tell people burnout happens in your head, in your mind, before it even hits your body. And the sad thing is, by the time it hits your body, you are in a state, it's an emergency state. It's like the alarm phase, right? And you really need to get help. Like when you start having things like heart palpitations and headaches and signs of high blood pressure or other signs of chronic stress, your energy levels are up and down. You are suffering from insomnia, like you can't sleep at night. When all of these things are happening, that is like the highest level of alarm that you need a pause. You need to get help. You need to rest, right? And that has to happen before you even get to the bliss plan part. You have to first recognize that it is a problem and that it needs you to pay attention to it. And usually what happens is our bodies will start to break down because it's the final alarm. Because it's like first our system will say like I tried to give you these signs and these signals and you weren't paying attention. So now I'm going to communicate through your body. That's what happens. But it starts in the mind, right? Where you just start to not feel yourself. You start to feel like sometimes it could be feeling depressed or sad. Sometimes it could be anxious or worried. Sometimes it could simply be you're doubting yourself a lot. You're wondering, you feel lost. You wonder, where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to be doing. It might be, you might feel like you just want to isolate yourself. Everybody's always asking you for something or trying to get something from you, and you just want to cut yourself off and shut yourself down, right? You feel like you don't have confidence in yourself or clarity. You don't know if you know what you want anymore. You thought you wanted the career or you thought you wanted the family. You thought you wanted these things. And now that you've achieved them, you feel like you don't know if that's what you want anymore or if it's worth it. And I'm bringing this up because so many women go through this. And part of it is different stages of life, right? In your earlier years, you are really uh, achievement focused. You're focused on the goal, the end result. And you're just by nature of that stage of life, you are hustling and grinding. That's what you do, right? Now, I am not a fan of hustle culture at all. Let me say that, right? Despite the degrees and all that, I learned early on when I was getting my PhD that I was not a hustle and grind kind of person. I knew how to work hard. I knew how to stay committed and discipline. But as far as just like hustling and exhausting my body and my mind, no, that wasn't me, right? But even if you're not totally right, subscribing to hustle culture, the society we live in tries to pull us in so many different directions that it can feel like, you're losing yourself. So, part of what I was saying is like stage of life. The stage of life you're in, there's stages where you are really, your nose is to the ground, you're getting things done. And then after you start getting some of those achievements under your belt, you can experience a sense of questioning or emptiness, or even wondering if all of the things you were working for were even your dreams at all in the first place, right? So it's totally normal as you move through the different stages and phases of your womanhood, right? Different milestones if you get married or, you know, in a long-term committed relationship, that's going to take you in a whole other direction. If you become a mother, if you have kids, that takes you into another direction, right? So it is so important throughout each stage to keep checking in with yourself as to who you are at this point in your life, what you want at this point in your life, and just making space and room for you, right? And this isn't a way to be selfish, but if we don't do this as women, if we don't engage in that deep self care, that reflection, that checking in with ourselves to see if, you know, to see who we are. We change over time, right? And if we don't engage in these things, then we're just going to be swept up in what other people want from us, what society is dictating. And now in this day and age, a big part of it is the stress and anxiety that comes from the problems that are going on, right? Like politics, we're in the first part of this new administration and there's a lot of anxiety about it. But here's the thing, this is one thing that I know. There has always been strife and instability at any point, right? The problem is, or the difference is, in this day and age, we're on a 24-hour news cycle. We're on a constant bombardment through social media, through all kinds of news outlets, like all of these uh, platforms, the news, social media, other people, other influencers, or whatever. Their goal is to get our attention. And the best way to get somebody's attention is to feed them negativity, right? Our brains are primed, and I know I'm going off a little bit on a slightly different topic, but our brains are primed to pay attention to novelty, but more specifically, negative mind novelty, right? New things in our environment that are also negative or potential dangers. And that's just the nature of us, how we evolved. That's in order to protect us, right? We need to see what the dangers are. But the problem is, in our modern society, so much of what is trying to get our attention is feeding into our feeding into that fear trigger. That's how it get, like, that, right? We all know that being controversial, being polarizing, being fear mongering, those things get engagement because they pique our interest. The problem with it, though, is that it triggers our system in a way, our nervous system in a way that is not helpful at all. There are so many of us that are either up in arms all the time, anxious and scared all the time, questioning. Because here's another thing, with all the constant like media that we're exposed to, a big thing that it does is it tries to point out all the ways that you're inadequate because it either wants you to buy something or tune into something, right? So it's always pointing out and focusing on our problems. And it's hard to relax and fall back into ease and bliss if you're constantly focused on distress, fear, anxiety, danger, right? Like our nervous systems are literally on high alert. In the psychology field, we call it hypervigilant. It's almost like we're in a war zone and we're looking like, where's the landmine? Is that a sniper up there? Is that an enemy? Right. And our bodies can handle that for short periods of time to keep us out of danger. But when we're constantly in that state, now think about some of us are in an emotional fight or flight state. And that's a state where we are, we're questioning ourselves. We're not satisfied within ourselves. We're not happy within ourselves. And we are distracting ourselves. And we're doing this to fill a void, right? It could be, I always go deep. It's about like things that happened in the past, but it could be filling a void of not being fulfilled right in the here and now. So what do? We overwork. We doom scroll. We distract ourselves in other people's business and stuff going on that we don't have no business even paying attention to because we need to focus on ourselves, right? So all of these are things that contribute to how we go down the path of burnout. Now, specifically though, burnout will build up in a few specific, like it'll really start to escalate or get intense in a few specific conditions. One is if you if you're not resting and nourishing yourself. So your schedule is so busy, your lifestyle is such that you never have time to fully rest, not just sleep, but fully rest, and you don't have time to nourish yourself in the way that you need to. So basically, your diet is crap, right? And sometimes it's a function of your lifestyle. You're so busy. You have to pick up things on the way. You have to eat out. You can't have like quality nurturing food or nourishing food, right? Another condition is if you are constantly working. See, our brains and our systems were not set up for that. We get an adrenaline rush when we're involved in something that we're passionate about and we're focused on it, but we are meant to have breaks in between that. So if we are constantly working, we're like workaholics. And again, we're filling the void. So we're constantly doing a new project. We're working on something. We never have time to be still, right? A lot of my type A ladies, if you're here in the chat, let me know. I understand. I understand. But I always read research and studies. There was a study looking at the real risks of really being a type A personality. And if you are type A, you need to understand that about yourself and you need to bring it down a notch. You need to really do relaxation, mindfulness, be very intentional about taking breaks, about eating, right? Because before we were fed the message that like you could work, you could hustle, you could grind throughout your whole life up until you're like age 60. And that's why a lot of people would retire and drop dead. It's like by the time they're finally ready to enjoy things, when they finally rest, they drop dead. The body just collapses, right? So you're constantly working. We were not meant to function like that, especially women. You need to read this book called Woman Code, right? It talks about our menstrual cycle, our body, our hormonal cycle, our circadian. So we're on a 24-hour circadian cycle, like how when we sleep and rise and throughout the day. Even with that, our hormone levels, our insulin levels, our glucose levels, our insulin levels fluctuate throughout the day. But then we're on a menstrual cycle, a 28 to 30 day cycle that is also hormonal. So we are a complex machine, women, but yet for many of us, we're in a society where we are just going like we're machines, like we're not even human. And on top of that, like we're not even women. So this book, Woman Code, is amazing. One show I'm going to do, we're going to break it down. But she talks a lot about the foods that you have to eat throughout different parts, not just of the day, but different parts of your cycle, your menstrual cycle. Because there's estrogen, progesterone, even testosterone. And so different foods are going to be needed, different levels of rest, different levels of activity. But we don't know that wisdom anymore. That was stuff your grandmom used to tell you. Your great grandmom used to tell you. Her grandmom told her. But now we got into a stage of like men and women are exactly the same. So we stopped even paying attention to our bodies as women. Okay. I know I'm going off on a whole other a whole other tangent. Um, but that is so when we're constantly working, that puts us at risk for burnout, and not just physical working. It could be mental. Like if you don't give yourself, we are meant to both work and play. We need meaningful activity. That's what work is, right? Purpose. But we also need time for play. That's the joy. That's the fun. So if even if our work feels like it's not physical, but it's intellectual and requires a lot of focus, you need a break. That puts you at risk for burnout. Another biggie that puts you at risk for burnout, I'm going to say this, right? Is not having boundaries. Not having boundaries is the quickest way to lose yourself. And when you lose yourself, you stop taking care of yourself in a meaningful way. And when you stop taking care of yourself in a meaningful way, you leave yourself open to burnout. That's what happens, right? So you're leaving yourself open when you don't have boundaries. Because what happens when you don't have boundaries, you are trying to be everything to everyone, and you end up being nothing to yourself. And on top of that, because you're spread so thin, everybody still gets mad at you. You know that my mom had a saying, no good deed goes unpunished. And I know it sounds cynical, but it's like you're trying to do all of this stuff for everybody, and these folks are still mad. They are still not satisfied. And when I realized that, right, I have suffered from migraine headaches since the age of 6. They weren't really diagnosed until I was like 12. And it was a real thing that I suffered from even up through my late 20s until I really got the kind of medication. That's why I'm such an advocate for people knowing what's going on with them, right? So I had to get some medication called Imitrex. If you suffer from migraines, you know about it. But I suffered from migraines for a while. But I remember when my migraines really started to go down was when I started to give myself permission to cuss people out, meaning basically to have boundaries, right? Because when you're trying to please everybody, it adds more stress to you because you end up not pleasing anybody and you lose yourself. And most importantly, you don't even please yourself, right? So that's another condition that makes you vulnerable to burnout. Another one on a real practical level is constantly being tuned in to the news. It is not helpful. There's a saturation point, right? Like no one needs to know 24/7 what's going on. It's the same thing being repeated over and over and over. Nobody needs to know that, right? So constantly exposing yourself to the news and even like doom scrolling. Like a lot of us, I'm a creator, right? I'm on social media, but I need to have a purpose. Like one of my mentors was like, you need to be creating way more than you are consuming. Even when I took my kid to the pediatrician, she told my daughter, you need to, if you're using your electronics, your tablet, for example, you need to be engaging in creative activities more than just consuming, sitting there and being a passive participant. So all of this doom scrolling, if you know you're in a state of feeling vulnerable, you're not feeling your best, like you're questioning yourself. You know, women, we go through it. Maybe you're questioning your looks or your weight or what's going on in your relationship or, where are you going in life? That is not the time. You need to curate your social media. That is not the time to just be doom scrolling and then starting to compare yourself to other people. Okay. Um, Another practical thing is so I said, if you're not resting and eating well, if you're constantly working, if you don't have boundaries, if you are constantly exposing yourself to social media and not just social, but like the news in particular. The other thing is if you are in a job that you hate, and you are it well, that's one, right? That's going to lead to burnout because you're not going to be fulfilling your purpose. And it is so important when you feel yourself starting to burn out to start to look for ways to empower yourself. How are you going to empower yourself? So whether that's job hunting, like deciding that I'm not going to be here, I'm trying to transition out, whether that's starting your side business or something, right? You have to empower yourself to not feel like you're in a state of being helpless. But another thing, a big one that leads to or leaves people vulnerable to being burnt out is not having community. Doing it alone. That's the biggest problem in this society is like doing it alone. Either you don't have a partner, you don't have a relationship, but also you just don't have a community. A lot of times, as you get older, your friends, everybody's doing their own thing, or you live in a different place, or you moved away from where you knew everybody. So, if you know that you like, it is so important. It doesn't even matter if you know, it is so important to be intentional about trying to connect with community. I just came from a little earlier this afternoon. There was a community meeting in my community with elected officials, and I went. And guess what? I just went to go because I wanted to speak up about some things that I noticed. But guess what? I met three people. One gave me her card, one gave me her email and phone number, and the other was like, "Oh, I'm going to get your information from so and so." Right? And this is what we're missing these days. Like a lot of times we will go out. I mean, we will be in the house just looking online, and that's not giving us a chance to really connect with other people and build community. It doesn't mean like just because I met those people, we're going to be best of friends, but that's a network. That's network. And part of community, building community is networking. All right. So, lack of community leaves us vulnerable to burnout. So, what do we do? How do you build a bliss plan, right? You probably guessed it. Excuse me. I got you. Do you all know that I got Invisalign? It's the things for your teeth. My kids were cracking up because I was like, you see, I lost a tooth when I was pregnant because when you're pregnant, all the not oxygen, calcium gets sucked out of you and you can have tooth problems, they can shift or whatever. So I'm finally getting this fixed, but first I have to have this Invisalign. So sometimes it's hard to talk. It's like something, extra in your mouth that makes it hard to pronounce sometimes. So, but so how do we get to the bliss plan, right? It's literally doing the opposite of those things that are causing you to be in burnout. But first, you have to give yourself permission to do it. You have to give yourself permission to do it. Um, one of the things is giving yourself permission to slow down, to eat, and to sleep and rest. Don't feel like you constantly have to be doing stuff. Stop feeling like it's lazy to not always be productive. In this society, in a capitalist based society, our worth and value are often tied to being productive. And the problem with that is it puts our value on other than the core self of who we are. And that means that a lot of times, if we're not being busy or productive, we feel like we're not worthy, we're not we're not valuable. Okay. So it's giving yourself permission to rest, to know you're not being lazy when you do it, when you do nothing. I love doing nothing. You see this chair right here in my office? Now I have the lights on. There will be times where I will just literally be sitting here. My lights dim, my incense going. I might have one of my little electric candles on, and I'm just like vibing. I'm just doing nothing. Whether it could be reading, it could just be sitting, right? Give yourself permission. The other thing is if you could take, and I mentioned this to you guys before, the 3M formula. Eat mood boosting foods. Those are foods that help your brain to function well. That's healthy protein, that's healthy fats, that's your leafy green vegetables, that's whole grains like brown rice and quinoa and like all of those healthy grains, ancient grains. Like eating stuff like that really helps. It's getting in at least 5 to 10 minutes of movement per day. Now, it needs to be more, But let's start where we can. Can you take a walk around the block for 10 minutes? Can you stretch for 10 minutes? Can you do 10 minutes of yoga? Can you dance around your house for 10 minutes, right? These things are going to lead to you feeling more clarity, more relaxed. Your body's going to function better. And I can't stress enough, like if you could just start with walking, you will see your mental health improve. As you start to get fresh air, it makes you more present focused. You start to get exercise, your blood is circulating, right? That's going to make you feel better. And the third M is practicing mindfulness. That could be like a guided meditation where you just sit and listen. They have them on, like I have Apple Music. You just type in guided meditation. There's guided meditations for relaxation, for sleep, for confidence, for self-esteem, for healthy relationships. It's you following along with affirmations and imagining, visualizing the positive things that you want for yourself. You do those three things. Each day you come back and tell me, each day you eat one thing that is healthy for you, like some fish, avocado, some whole grain brown rice, some oatmeal. You eat a banana, you eat some blueberries. You do that each day, right? Then you take 5 minutes. You do some deep breathing, or you go and go to YouTube and find a guided meditation for relaxation, right? And then you get in 5 to 10 minutes of movement every day. You do that for 2 weeks, 14 days, and you come back. Come back on my live in 2 weeks and tell me in the chat how you're feeling, right? The other thing is allow yourself to have fun. Allow yourself to have fun. If you follow my social media, I just got back from a cruise. I said that earlier. I literally did everything. I was with my kids kissing the sea lions. We went on this sea lion tour. I'm the one that'll do the zip lining. I'm jumping in the water to get in the beach. I'm climbing up the rock climbing. Like anything that's fun and adventurous, it's joyful, right? It's joyful. It keeps me in a youthful state of mind, right? So it doesn't have to be it's like whatever is your thing that is fun and joyful. It could be like knitting. It could be going to go out with your girls. It could be anything that is really fun and joyful to you. But you want it to be something where you don't have to be under the influence, because I know a lot of people have to do, like, they have to have alcohol or some sort of substance to feel like they're having fun. But you want to try, like, especially when it comes to burnout, because that's like a tricky thing. You start self-medicating and you don't get to the root, like you never resolve why you're burnt out. You're just covering up and self-medicating, right? You got to learn how to just like relax on your own. Another thing, so it's the opposite of everything I said. You got to eat. You got to allow yourself to get less. If you don't sleep, you need to start with 6 hours a night and it increases. It's more so about the quality of sleep, but you're going to have to come up with a sleep hygiene routine, which is like a routine, something you do every night that helps your body to know, right? I love taking Calm. It's a combination of magnesium. It has some melatonin and some B6, I think. And I really don't use it that much now, but there was a time when it was hard for me to wind down and fall asleep. I would just take a Calm and have a routine. My warm shower every night, a hot cup of tea, turning off the phones and all that. Maybe watch something, you know, that's fun to watch or relaxing to watch, and then settle down. Not being in the bed doing work, computers, none of that, right? So having a routine for that. And then so it's all of the things that cause burnout is like doing the opposite. So if you're isolated, you need to get out. You need to be in community. And community could simply be like, I told somebody, go to the same Starbucks or wherever you go, right? I don't know if you drink coffee, tea, or you like whatever it is that you like. Go to that same place every day at the same time if you can. Especially in the morning, people start to recognize you. "Oh, okay, what are you having today? You having the same thing?" Right? They start to recognize you, and that builds a sense of community. It really does. Cut down on that news, please. Now there's some people that don't know anything that's going on in the world, but there's some people that don't really know, but they just get the headlines and it comes up on their phone like breaking news. And it's just very overwhelming because it's triggering that fight or flight in their nervous system. But then they don't really have a lot of context, so it's not empowering them, right? If you're empowered to do something, that's one thing. But if you're just watching, doom and gloom on the news, it's just going to get you depressed. It really will get you depressed or anxious, right? And so we said sleeping, eating, the 3 M's, doing things that you enjoy, trying to build community, and the most important, because these Thursday shows we're talking about empowering yourself, one of the most important things you could do is to stay stimulated, right? So if you're in a place where like there's something in your life that you feel trapped in, that you are doing that you don't want to be doing, then you want to think about like what are the things that you have control over? What are the things that where you can feel empowered? But one of the biggest sources of burnout is when people are they're at a job that they do not like. So it's important to like somehow find something that you can control, some form of empowerment, whether that is getting your skills up, switching careers, getting a new job, starting a business, like trying to do the thing that's going to bring you the income you want so you don't have to do that thing anymore. All of that, as they say, that part. hmm And then the boundaries. Boundaries are like one of the most overlooked hacks to being in bliss. Because, like I said, when I started cussing people out, which is really just a metaphor for being okay with disappointing people, for being unapologetic and unabashed with my willingness to disappoint others, even people close to me. That allowed me to take off a burden that I hadn't realized I was carrying in that way. And that will lead to a level of bliss, like happiness and joy, because you're lighter just by having those boundaries. So learning to practice saying no. No, I can't do that. No, this isn't a good time. Oh, thanks for thinking of me, but no thanks. Right? You got to do the little no thanks. Make it sweet, but still have boundaries. And all of those things are going to slowly take you out of that burnout state. But if you walk away with anything today, like if you want to start something right now, today, tonight, that you can do to help relieve your burnout, if you're in that state, it's trying to get a good night's rest and waking up and nourishing yourself really well. Not that fly by night, cupcake for breakfast or skipping breakfast or not eating until 1 or 2 o'clock. If you need a reminder, put it in your phone, right? Those two things, trying to start working on getting a good night's rest and waking up and nourishing yourself, that's going to go a long way, because then as you work on getting your body more healthy, and then you start working on your mindset with your boundaries and focusing on what you can control, that right there is a winning combination. And that's how you start to eat away at any burnout that you're feeling. Okay. So what's up? Let me see. Do we have any comments? I see. Trying to see if there's comments. Okay. Somebody, when I posted that I was going to be doing this live, they sent me a message and they're like, help, SOS, like, please talk about what I can do if I know I'm I'm deeply burnt out. I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. I'm tired. I don't have energy. Like, you have to it's almost like you have to rehabilitate yourself. You need to drink water. You need to take vitamins, you need to rest, and you need to eat right. Okay. That's step number one. Then you start going to the next phase. Okay. I need to get out. I need to walk. Right. I need to take inventory, take stock of my life. Where am I pouring energy that I don't have any more energy to give? And you need to start to chip away and cut those things out, whether it's people, whether it's places that you're going, whether it's things that you're involved in or volunteering where you don't have the energy right now to, right? So that's another thing, is letting go of the guilt. A lot of times guilt will keep us involved in things they are not serving us anymore, but we're constantly doing it because we feel guilty for letting it go. Okay. All right, ladies, please, please, please make sure you send me a message if there's a topic you want us to talk about. And we're going to do some live coaching. I have a couple of people who sent me messages. So we're just trying to coordinate, because I would love to do some live coaching. So you guys get to see, like, there is a way out of feeling stuck, and there is a way to feel more empowered and in control of your life. Okay. I'm glad you guys joined me this evening. Look, we got to go out with the theme music, right? You guys like it's the same for the podcast. Don't forget, every Monday we drop a new episode of the Secret Formula of Femininity podcast. This one that just dropped, we love it.